Hello everyone, welcome to another Teach to Code with Professor V, the Python edition. So today we're going to go over numeric, well, not just numeric data types, data types and variables. So the last one we did a little bit of variables and stuff, some trigonometry, a little bit harder math, so if I have a little time at the end of this video or my next video, might just do some linear algebra and some other things that we probably can recognize from like pre-algebra and areas and perimeters and how to calculate those. Not everybody knows how to do trigonometry, and that's fine. We're all at a bunch of different levels. So anyways, moving forward, so we have different data types, right? We have the numeric, we have the Boolean, we have the strings, lists, dictionaries, and tuples. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So numeric data types, we have quite a few different numeric data types, honestly. You assign it with an equals is what they're saying, so it's always going to be in this this flow here. Variable name is equal to whatever value you're using. The other conventions are variables should start with a name. Variable names can only contain letters, numbers, and underscore characters. So, doing kind of the the Java thing. Well, no, Java doesn't have space. I don't know what I'm going on about, but you usually use the underscore. Variable names cannot contain spaces or punctuation, so it's never good to ever have spaces or punctuation, and variable names are not enclosed in quotes or brackets. So those are some good things to know. Now, next part of the book, I'll talk a little bit about, A is equal to 5. They do this command type. So type A, it's going to return what kind of data is stored. So unlike Java, where you have to explicitly say this is an integer, right? Integer A equals 5. You don't have to do that in Python. Python pretty much reads the variable and then it determines its type on its own. So that's kind of the nice thing about Python sometimes. So also if you do -2, that's an int. 0 is considered an integer. And then we have floating points. So floating points are going to be with decimals. Both a lowercase e or an uppercase e are used for scientific notation. So if you see the e, don't freak out, right? It's might be that your number's either really gigantic or your number's super small. So we use the e for this type of assignments, right? Scientific notation. So know that. If you don't know about scientific notation, you might want to look at that and take a look at it, because Python is pretty science-based as far as, this book and the reading goes. So if we have 6.2, it's going to and we do type, it's going to return us a float. Negative decimals will also return a float. And then 6.02 e to the 23 will also be a type float. So what else do we have? So if it's just a 5, it'll be an int. If it's 5 point, it'll be a float. So kind of weird to just put 5 decimal and no 0, huh? But just know that if you do put a decimal there for whatever reason, you're going to have a float. So if you ever have a mix match of data types, you might need to fix that. So other than that, we do complex numbers. I don't know how far you guys have gone in math, like I say, but there is the idea of complex numbers. So we have the real number and then the imaginary number, right? So you can't use I to define a complex number. So if you use I, bad things will happen. I guess usually because we use I for the loop, so I really don't know why that is, but just know that if you do use the I, it's probably not going to work. So numbers can be added to integers and floats. So integer is equal to 3, Comp sum is equal to comp plus integer. Print comp sum, so they get 7 plus 2j. Oh, okay, so comp was 4 plus 2j, so when they added integer was 3, so what happens here is the real numbers get added to each other, right? 3 would be considered real because it doesn't have the imaginary component. So 4 plus 3 is going to be the 7. Since there was no imaginary number to add, 2j just stays 2j. You could also add floats here to this. I guess that's where they're going with FLT. So they add 2.1 to the complex number variable they have here in comp. 4 plus 2.1 is 6.1 plus 2j because there was no imaginary number to add. So good stuff, good stuff. So here we go to the Boolean data type. So the Boolean is fun. It's all true or false. If you've ever done Boolean algebra, I had a blast in it. You know, it's all computer science and circuits and whatnot. So A is equal to true, B is equal to false. They have the type here, and we get a bunch of class Boolean. So it tells us what the data type is. C is equal to true. Oh, so it's lowercase t, so it's giving an error. So do know that if you're using true and false in Python, they must be capital T and capital F. So that's good to know. Integers and floats is Boolean, so 0 int is equal to 0, and you type in the Boolean 0 int, it'll return false. All other numbers, it seems like, will appear true. So here we go, the Boolean arithmetic. So this stuff's fun. So we have or, and, not, equivalent, and not equivalent. A lot of times we just say equals and not equal, right? Equals equals, sometimes you will hear that. So A is equal to true, B is equal to false. So A or B returns true, because as long as one of them is true, it's going to return true. It's like saying John and Mark. John or Mark will go to the park. So if John shows up to the park, it's true, right? Even if Mark doesn't. It doesn't matter if Mark doesn't. The only way this will return false if John or Mark don't show up to the park, if that makes sense. Now, and's a little bit different. Both of them need to be true. So or, only one needs to be true. With and, both need to be true, right? So think about this. If I say John and Mark are going to the park, and only John goes, well, I lied, right? So that would be a false statement. If John and Mark both go to the park, it would return true. So that's how come we're getting a false in this output, because one of them's true and the other's false. So not A simply flips it. So anytime you have not, it's basically the opposite of it. So not A is false, right? So A is true, but not A is false. Not B is true, because over here they have B set to false. So if it's not B, it is true, because it's the opposite of false. So here we have is A equal to B. Well, that's false, right? One's true, the other's false, so it can't return true for that. But here, A is not equal to B. Well, that's true, because one of them's true and the other's false, right? So that's how we go on about that. Boolean operators such as and, or, not can be combined in parentheses. So yeah, this is pretty much my computer science class that I took back in the day. So A or C and B. So C is equal to false. I feel like we should do this one. I feel like this one we should do. So data types and variables. So let me go ahead and get into my notebook. Let me do a new Python 3. So I believe A was true, right? B was false. And then C was also false? Is that what I was picking up on? Yeah, C is also false. They used capital letters, but you know, I'm going to use lowercase letters for my variables. So what did we have? We had A or B and C, right? I believe is what it was. C and B, same stuff. Alright, so this returns true, so let's go ahead and look at this. Let's maybe even dissect it a little bit further. So B and C, what do you guys think we're going to get there for this one? We should get a false, right? If I'm not mistaken. So why do we get false here? Well, B is false, C is false, so neither Mark nor John showed up to the party, so false. But after we get that false, we have a true or false now, right? So when we get to A, we know A is true. So it's true or false. So Jane showed up. Either Jane will show up or Mark and John will show up. So Jane showed up, so that's why the overall statement is true. If that makes sense. I know some of this is gets a little hairy there sometimes. But anyways, we have these beautiful truth tables, yeah, so if you want to learn more about this, you can definitely Google truth tables. If you comment in the comments below, I can definitely add a little bit more stuff to that for you. So other than that, we'll go over strings, and we're getting pretty close to the end of this video. Well, no, there's still time. So strings are considered literals. In Python, you could use the single quotes or the double quotes. Python is pretty forgiving in that sense. Python strings can contain blank spaces, so if you just have quotation, space, quotation, it's going to count. It's part of the ASCII table. So since it's part of the ASCII table, it counts as a character. So be aware of that. So they're also doing type string. Well, they're doing the type command, and they're putting in string. I don't know why they would have called their string string, but anyway, it returns class str, which is string. Numbers is string, so this one's a little bit tricky too. So if you put the number in quotes, know that you're not going to be able to do math to it. So anytime you have the quotes inside of a number, it's not considered a number to Python. It's going to be class string, so be aware of that. If you want to do math, don't include the quotes. We'll talk about parsing later. So name is equal to Gabby. So bool name is equal true. So let's see, strings can be converted to Boolean values, converted to true or false. The empty string returns false. All of the strings convert to true. So I'm not too sure when you would ever use this. I've never used it myself, but know that the empty string returns false for whatever reason. Note that the string with a space will return true because it's part of the ASCII table. It has to know the space. It has to have a place value. It has a place in the ASCII table. Otherwise, when you hit the space bar, nothing would happen. So be aware of that. So consider the word below. Python counting starts at 0. So just know that every index of a word will always start at 0. Every index. We don't count 1, 2, 3 when we're programming. We count 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's just the way it is. When we go into lists and arrays and all those good things, it's pretty standard. So just know that, right? And it ends at n-1. So that's another one you might want to know, but I think until you practice it, it might be a little abstract. So anyways, S is 0, so they have a string called solution. O is 1, L is 2, etc., etc. So what they're doing here with the brackets is they're saying, we have this variable, word is equal to solution. Give me the word at index 0 is basically how you would say this. So it gives you the S. Give me word at the index of 1, which is the O. Give me word, let's use the word variable at index 7, well, that's an n. So just know that. Now, the 8th index of the solution is called an error is returned, so this is the index out of range error. So sometimes you can get this even with your for loops and stuff. If you're looping through a list or an array, right, it's gonna tell you that sometimes. So if you ever get this error, it's because you went out of range. You went further, you're looping further than the array or list or word that you have. So it's not allowed. Confuses Python. Okay, so what else do we have? String slicing. So string slicing is fun. So the way you would slice a word, so basically slicing a word, you can print out different sections of the word. So if you think about this, word 0:3, so use the variable word at the position 0:3. Now the weird part about that, right, 0, 1, 2, 3, is it won't print out the U. So be aware of that. Wherever you end the index at, it's actually going to go n-1, I guess, essentially, right? So sol. I can't really explain why it does that, but I know that it does do it. So, oh, did I skip the negative stuff? Oops. And also know that if you put the negative, it's going to go backwards. So this will actually be -1, -2, -3. So you might need to iterate through a word backwards and use that index. But anyways, with word slicing, 0:3. I think they should have put that up before the negative. But anyway, so a colon by itself of the inside square brackets indicates all. So if you don't give it any index, it's going to print the whole word. And then, if you're not already confused, because string manipulation is always fun, when three numbers are separated by 2 colons inside a square brackets, the numbers represent start. So the first number will be the starting index. The second number is the stop of the index. And the third one is going to be the step. So remember that Python's counting starts at 0 and ends at n-1. So if we look at this, it's printing index 0 to 7. And then it should be in 2 steps. I feel like maybe we should do this, right? Let's go ahead and give it a shot. So they said word, I believe is what they called it. I always use double quotes. It really doesn't matter. So I think they said word 0:7:2. So let's go ahead and look at this and see what's going on. So if you think about it, right, S is the 0 index. It steps by 2, so the O counts, right, 1, 2 to the L. Let me zoom in a little bit. Then it counts 2 steps again to the T, counts 2 steps to the O, and that's it, right? So if we were to put 3 here, let's go ahead and experiment a little bit. We get SUO, so let's see why that happens. So it starts at index 0, so the S comes out, right? Then it goes 1, 2, 3 to the U, and then it steps again 1, 2, 3 to the O, so Su, or Suyo, or I don't know what that is, but anyway. Alright. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay. So do know that you could also do double colons. Let me see if it talks about this. The 2 lines of code produce the same output. Okay, because yeah, when we do the colon, it indicates all, right? So I guess index all with index all. See, some of this gets a little confusing even for me to like explain myself, but do know that you can use the empty colons and get the same result as this. So, and then the interesting one, we can print the word out backwards by using colon -1. So that's a fun one too. So if we go, I'll just use this one. So -1 colon, which I think we should get the it backwards like this too. Oh, no, I got an empty string. Ah, alright. So solution turns into nulltelios. Anyway. Yeah, we're at 20 minutes, so yeah, I probably should end it. I think with lists and dictionaries and tuples, we'll need a little more time, but if you've ever worked with arrays, lists are pretty much the same thing, the same concept, right? If I say something wrong by saying that, please put it in the comments. I might be saying a dangerous statement, but for the most part, in my knowledge and experience, you pretty much do the same things with them. So alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this wasn't probably too engaging as far as answering stuff, but I'm just trying to go over the book and explain stuff, in my own way, and just trying to touch base with you guys. Eventually, we'll do the list, dictionaries, and tuples in the next one, and then we'll do the review questions. So we might find the data types. I don't know. That seems a little interesting, but what data type is A dividing B? That's a float. Anyway, what is 5.1 plus 0 plus 3j? 5.1 plus 3j, right? So create the floating point and assign it to the variable b. From math, import e. Round e to the nearest integer. Store the result in a variable called x. Magnitude, that one's always fun, right? What is it? The sums of the real and imaginary squared, everything rooted, right? It's been a while since I've had to say that. So cool. And then we got a bunch of Boolean outputs here, a little bit of string practice, some string slicing, create a list of words that contains and the word game. Create a list of numbers 1 to 10, counting by ones. Use slicing to pull out. Okay, that sounds fun. And then dictionaries. So dictionaries are always fun. As far as I know, dictionaries are only in Python. Well, as far as my experience goes, there might be a different coding language out there because there's plenty of them. But I mean, I've worked with Java, JavaScript, C#, although I'm just learning C# myself, but I haven't heard of the dictionaries in C# yet. I've practiced PHP. I've never heard of dictionaries in there either. So if there are dictionaries, let me know what language in the comments below and you can enlighten me. But other than that, I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.